G'day guys, you're back with MiracleMAX. Today in the workshop we have a Toyota Prado 1998 model with a 5VZ FE, if I remember correctly, the big 3.4 litre engine. What's wrong with it? Well, the check engine light is on. Let's have a look at it and see if we can fix it. So what's the actual fault with this vehicle? Well, the customer has complained that when they're driving down the road, all of a sudden the check engine light will come on and it'll die away with power. Now this thing is dual fuel, LPG as well as petrol, and she said that it happens the same on both fuels. Now these Prados are a little bit old school. They have a different connector, not your typical 16-pin connector, OBD II of course. These are a different style, so the method of finding the fault codes is a little bit different and perhaps a little more difficult to find information for. Anyway, we'll give it a shot and see what we find. So the poor old beast has done 399,834 kilometres. No wonder it's a bit tired. Okay, check engine light time. On these early model Toyota Prados, they have a diagnostic link connector in the engine bay, and they're a little different configuration to the OBD II, which is a 16-pin connector. These fellas are a little harder to work on. Now what I've done is connect, and if you have a look in there you can see that it's got written all sorts of figures and numbers. So what we've done here is short out between terminal E1 and TE1, and that will bring on the check engine light and give us the codes that we need. What codes do we have today? Let's have a look. The fault codes are broken down into a series of flashes by the check engine light. If we have a look at this one and count them off, we can see that it is, wait for it to start, and there's a big break. 1, 2, 3, 4, and there's a break. It's 41. 41 it is. See if there's anything else. Let's count them. Let's count them off, Jim. How many does he have? 1, 2, 3, 4, space 1. So that's 41. That's our code that we need to look for. After much struggling and searching on the internet, like I said, it's a bit difficult to find info for fault codes on this particular model. I've come up with code 41 is throttle position sensor. Now I'm hoping that that's what it stands for, because each model changes. So as you can see, I'm in the engine bay at the moment. I'm just hovering over my inlet manifold. There's my inlet manifold. There's my throttle body right here. The TPS is this bloke back here, throttle position sensor. Now at the moment, I haven't touched it. I don't want to touch it at the moment. I just want to have a bit of a goosey gander around and get a mirror in there, see if there's anything hanging out, see if there's any reason for a fault to be there. Is the connector loose or tight? That would be my next check, and it appears to be tight. Other things that we would need to check for is terminal retention. Remember, where the female or the male goes into the female fitting, and make sure that that's nice and tight. Otherwise you'll get intermittent faults. Of course there's other areas that we need to check. We need to check it electrically, make sure we have voltage going to it, a good earth, and of course our signal wire. I'll explain in a little more detail shortly how all that works. So I will just, come on Max Muscles, don't let me down now, man. Come on fella. Oh, there we go, pulled it off. So I've got the connector off, and here's our little terminals in there. I want to make sure that they're nice and tight against the male connectors there. There's other things that we need to check, of course, is for things like, you know, corrosion. Is there any grottiness in there, grit, grime? I'll clean it with a bit of electronics spray and make sure that it's in good condition. But as I said, there's other testing that we need to do. What are those tests? So I've whipped out the old schematic so we can have a bit of a bo peep at it. So we're looking at the TPS at the moment, and fortunately on the auto data system they have all the codes listed for you and what they represent. Over here, throttle position sensor, TPS is B147, and I have conveniently highlighted it for you, and I'm pointing at it with my what's called a spudger or a black pointy thing. So B147 is right there. So what do all these mean? With this particular model they have 3 wires, 1, 2, 3. Earlier models have 4 wires, they include an idle switch, but this particular model doesn't. Maybe that's because it's manual, don't know, don't care. Alrighty, So 3 wires, we can see there's a resistor. It's a variable resistor in this case, and most likely this brown wire I suggest would be an earth wire. You can see it's all shared by everyone, and you can see further down here that these brown ones go down to our earth. Whoops, you can't see that, can you? Pull it up, Max. So 31 is listed as earth over here, and you can see it comes down to there. Brown wires coming up here, brown wires coming up here, So I suggest that our brown wire, these fellas over here, which are joined to other sensors, would in fact be our earth. And this bloke number 3 is the variable voltage that goes back to pin number 7 over here on our ECU. Now, these are a variable resistor, but because we're pumping voltage into them, back into that way, we get a variable voltage coming out of it. So you can test both ways, but obviously using the voltage reference that is there is the best way. Let's check it out onto the vehicle. So there's several ways that we can attack this. Remember, the 3 wires are brown, green, black, and yellow, red by the looks of things, and you can see those there. I've back probed a couple with my trusty dressmaking pins. I don't want to damage any terminals, and of course if there's terminal retention problems on the front, I don't want to make them worse by shoving something in the front. Okie dokie. So what I've got it on at the moment is my brown wire. I can check for resistance, can't I, to see if the earth is in good condition. That's one thing we can do. So I'll just do that. I'll stick my other lead on an earth, a good known earth. Excusez-moi, folks, while I hook him on there. Come on, fella. All right, so we've got, what's that, 0.3? That's really, really good earth, isn't it? So no issue there. The other one that we have to do is our, what colour was that, Max? Quick. It was green-black. That's the next one. And so, if we just go, I've already hooked him into that one. Oh, she's in there schnies and tight. So if I just go across to that, put this onto voltage, of course. I was on resistance a second ago. I've now got it onto voltage. I need to turn on my key. What should we expect? Roughly 5 volts. Ignition key on, Max. Ignition key on. And we're seeing, don't worry about the way I've hooked it up backwards, 4.97 volts. That's really good, isn't it? So that's okie dokie. Another way that we can do, even without checking the resistance of the earth, is simply using the earth, which is probably a better way of doing it, making sure that that earth is in good condition. And there we go. So I've hooked, I've used the earth off the ECU. That in turn will determine if the ECU is not only pumping out 5 volts, but the earth that goes back to it is in good nick as well. Okay, if we pop it back on and go to our 3rd pin and vary our throttle position, we should see a variance of that voltage. And we'll hit it a couple of times, give it a bit of grief, because she said it comes and goes. So obviously it's not a consistent thing. These things do wear on the tracks. So what I've done is I've hooked up I've put a new pin into the yellow-red. That's our signal wire that goes back to the ECU. Now I'm going to come over to my throttle body, and you probably can't see me, it's hidden in behind the multimeter, but I'm going to turn the throttle backwards and forwards, and we should see a variation, shouldn't we? Now let's see what we get out of this fella. Hang on. Get the muscles happening there, Max. There we go, 0.9, 1, 1.2, 1.4, 1.6, 2 volts, 2.5 volts, 3 volts, 3.5 volts. That's the maximum I'm getting out of it. Yeah, it's a little bit low. Doesn't appear that these are adjustable on these. But look, using a multimeter, and I should have some sort of voltage here. It seems to be very, very low. I should have maybe 0.5, 0.8 of a volt, but yeah, well, virtually nothing there. What I might do is crack out my little tiny oscilloscope, because we're looking for an intermittent fault, and with a multimeter it just gives you an average. So I might bring out a ye old oscilloscope and see if we can find a fault. I've got the old MiracleMAX oscilloscope out, the DSO 138. It was just a kit that I put together, cost me 27 bucks, something along those lines, plus the enclosure and a few hours in front of the TV putting it together. Works alright, I have no issue with it. Now keep in mind we're looking for any hiccups, which we couldn't see with a multimeter. So I'm trying to pull it up as easy and as smooth as I can. Just give it some time to kick in. And there we go. Hello, whoop. See that big hiccup there? Look at that. There's a big jump, isn't there? And then it jumps down again. Now I'm by no means smooth as, but I'm trying to be fairly consistent, and there's a big hiccup each single time, isn't there? You can see that as it rises up, and of course as it drops away. Let's just keep going there, see if it's consistent. Look at that rise that we have there, and of course then as I come down there's a massive drop there, isn't there? Look, this TPS has got some issues, I'm thinking. I'm happy with the 5 volt reference, I'm happy with the earth, I'm also happy with the signal that it's consistent coming out, apart from the fact it's a bit on the dodgy side. I'm going to recommend to the customer that this TPS be replaced. I feel that I've checked everything that I need to. You can see it's inconsistent. Look at that drop right there, hey? And that's not me, because it's super consistent. The rise that it goes up there, it's got a dodgy spot in there, guys. So, hey, yeah, that's what I'm going to recommend. As I said, it's a little bit hard to get some of the information on this Prado. To clear the codes, I believe that we have to pull off fuse number, what's that over there? ECU IG on the top right hand, and the ECU B on the left hand bottom. Don't know, but I'll pull them out anyway. Give it some time, and hopefully that should clear that code, and then we'll have another shot, see if the code comes straight back or not. And maybe we can in fact put our foot up and down on the accelerator a couple of times, see if it brings the code and the ECU light flashing again. So just pop those fuses out, Max. It was that one, correct? Yes. Come on. There you go. One. Und this one. Gotcha. 2. Alright, we'll give that a little bit of time. Removing either of those fuses just didn't work. It didn't cut the mustard, so I had to pull out the big guns. Yes, I disconnected the battery, and that seems to have worked. A consistent flashing check engine light indicates that the system is all honky-dory at this point in time. What I'm going to do is pull out that diagnostic link shorting pin that I've put in there, and just keep the ignition on, and then put my foot off and on the accelerator, you know, see if I can recreate the fault. At that point in time, the check engine light should come on. That would indeed confirm that that is where the fault is, but we'll give that a whirl. So I've pulled out the diagnostic connector shorting wire that I put in there to bring up the codes, pulled off the battery as you heard, and I'm just about to turn on the ignition. Let's see what happens. That check engine light should come on for a short period of time, then go out. We may have to start this vehicle to get the check engine light to go out. We'll see what happens. There we go, it's out. So I'll just... You can hear how high it's idling to. I believe it's got another issue that I've spoken to the customer about, that they really don't want to spend any money on it. But check engine light's gone out. I'll take it for a road test, see if I can get it to come back on in the conditions that it will come back on at. But I still feel confident it's the TPS. Alrighty, road test. So the check engine light on the dash stayed off during my road test, not a problem. It drove okay. It's got a huge fast idle issue. Now that may be related to my TPS fault as well. Keep in mind that the TPS has to work from a base idle scenario. If it's further than it should be, then it won't get its full sweep of voltage variation. But I still think that that TPS has a fault, as we saw by using not just the multimeter, which gave us an average, but using the oscilloscope. Yay! So even a basic cheap oscilloscope like that will give you good results. Other things with this vehicle is that it's overdue for a service, 10,000 kilometres. Serious. And the ABS light is stuck on the dash. That ain't going nowhere. So there's more work to be done on this vehicle yet. They do a lot of kilometres, but hey, you've got to look after the beast, even though it's pretty much done 400,000 Ks. So decision time, I don't know. I'll give the customer all the information they need to make a good decision about what to do next with regard to moving forward on this repair. I'll keep you informed. It's a sad state of affairs, but unfortunately the Toyota Prado is no more. That's right, someone came along while it was parked, smacked straight into the back of it and wrote it off. So unfortunately I can't show you the completed job because I never got to do it. But what should a correct TPS signal look like? That I can show you. Okay, so just for the case of comparison, I'm working on a Ford Laser. Ford, I know, right? My wife is very upset, but hey, if it does the job, whatever. Let's zoom in, I'll show you what I'm doing. So as you can see, the TPS has been hooked up again with a dressmaking pin, and I've got not only my oscilloscope hooked up, but also my multimeter. So what are those readings showing us, and is this TPS any good in comparison to the Prado? Remember I said the range that this should work between is about 0.5 of a volt through to about 4.5 of a volt. Remember this has a 5 volt reference. Now I'm not concerned about checking the earth or the 5 volts at this point in time. Why not? Well hey, if the control wire or the signal wire is okay, then the other two must be okay, mustn't they? So we're starting at 0.5 on this little Ford Laser, and it's good, 0.5, and we'll just slowly sneak up and see what it's reading. Taking it nice and slow, and we are reading at 4.27, so that's great. There's nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But what's the signal look like on the oscilloscope? Let's have a look at that. Once again, we've got to be in the dark to do this. It's a little bit difficult, but hopefully you can see what I'm doing. Now it does respond fairly slow, but let's just have a look at the actual pattern itself. Is that consistent with what we were seeing on the multimeter? I'll try and be fairly smooth. I must admit I wasn't very smooth that time. I'll have another shot, see what it looks like. But you can clearly see it doesn't have that big step that the Prado had, hey. Let's go up and down again. What's that look like? Nice and smooth, excellent. That's exactly what it should look like. There'd be no flat spots in this bad boy. Okay, so by comparison, this TPS is in good condition compared to the Prado. That's what we needed to know. RIP Prado. I feel very confident at this point. Had I replaced the TPS, code 41 would have been out of here. That's correct. All data and measurements pointed to a faulty TPS. At least I hope you've been able to learn something, guys, about the testing procedures to find fault codes on a Toyota Prado, and also how to test a TPS efficiently and correctly. So, if you enjoyed this video today and you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Give it a like. Feel free to comment down below, and don't forget about that notification bell so you don't miss any future videos. So guys, until next time, this is MiracleMAX signing off. I will catch you later.